So I have shared this before, but I'm just going to share it again for Instagram TV so it stays here. For those people who are heading into a birth and maybe have some fear around maybe a previous birth or just the unknown. This is a blend that I made up for relaxation and calm, and I used it in the lead up to the birth, but I also used it during labor as well. And so I use this across my heart, behind my ears, on the back of my neck. I've used it on restless legs as well. So I'm just going to talk through the oils that are in it. So the first one is Siberian fir, and I got these oils based on the Emotions and Essential Oils book because it's a great reference guide for using oils to support the emotions. And so you go through it and you look for oils that are going to support the feelings that you have, that you're maybe trying to remove, or if you are looking to manifest a particular emotion, like positive emotion, then you can use an oil to do that as well. So Siberian fir is the oil of aging and perspective, and it helps to alleviate the negative emotions of grieving, loss, despairing, sad, regretful, fretting over the past, or pining. And so for me, I was fretting over my past experiences of my other births. Evie, my first birth, I was hoping for a natural birth at a birth centre, and I was transferred to the major hospital with a swollen cervix. I ended up with an epidural to relax that, and I was still able to have a vaginal birth, but it just wasn't what I thought I was going to have. And so then going into my second labour, had a lot of fear around what might happen when I go to the hospital, because I was then having my second child at the major hospital. So, and again, the fear came up. We had a cascade of intervention and ended in an emergency C-section after 30 hours of labour. So not fun. So a little bit of fear heading into this birth, my third birth, because it was a VBAC. So there was that added pressure. I felt nervous. People had told me stories about uterine ruptures and things like that. So I was nervous about that, and nervous about what I had experienced. So wanted to create a blend that was going to help support that fear of the past, and those sorts of things. So the next one is juniper berry, and this one is actually all about fear. Lots of people use this for night terrors and things like that. So juniper berry is actually the oil of the night, and helps to relieve fear. So in terms of negative emotions, it helps to relieve irrational fears, recurrent nightmares, disrupted sleep, or aspects of avoiding. And then positive properties, it brings about emotions of protection, peaceful dreaming, courageous, and self-awareness. So obviously I wanted to feel courageous during this birth, so that was quite helpful, and that's why one of those oils went in there. And also because I was really struggling to sleep in the lead up to the birth, because I would go to bed trying to think of positive or manifest positive birth, like, what's the word? Like role plays. So like role playing it out in my head and trying to manifest that, and dreams like that. However, when I would start to think about that, it would kind of cascade into fear. And so this helped with that. The next one is vetiver, which was mainly for relaxation, but also to help with sleep. And I was getting restless legs while in the lead up to this birth, and that's definitely from fear. Okay, so yes, I know there's probably some kind of like medical reason why I would have restless leg syndrome, but I would only get it when I would start to build up fear before going to sleep, because that's when I would put my head on the pillow and I would think about it or overthink about it. So vetiver is the oil of centering and descent. Okay, so it helps to relieve that idea of us being disconnected, scattered, or stressed, which is definitely how I felt, ungrounded, and the feeling of crisis. So that is how I felt when I went to the hospital to birth my second child, Vinny. I felt scattered and stressed, and I was fretting, okay, which led into the cascade of intervention. And so I was trying to avoid that this time around. The next oil is patchouli. So we'll go and find that. Patchouli is such a beautiful oil. It's quite musky, especially in the diffuser. It smells really strong in the bottle, but it's beautiful in the diffuser, and I love it on my body. And it's actually the oil of physicality. So beautiful in terms of us wanting to use our body in a way that we are hoping to use it. And so, you know, leading into this birth, I wanted to use my body to feel really feminine, to feel like it was powerful and that it could do this. It could do a natural birth. And so it helps us to relieve that idea of feeling disconnected from our body. And that's kind of how I felt. I felt tension and disconnected from my body, like it couldn't do it. It was like, it was so frustrating because I'm like, I'm so earthy and I feel like I should be able to do this and all of those sorts of things. However, it didn't work out that way for me the first 2 times around, and so I was really hoping that this time it would, and I wanted to prepare myself as much as possible with the tools that I could get my hands on, and support myself emotionally and physically to be able to do it. And so the positive properties, it helps you to feel confident, it helps us to feel connected to our body and have acceptance, and it helps us to feel balanced and stable. So you can see how all of these oils help to support me in terms of preparing for this labor and helping to support the emotions that were coming up and recurring. And if I were to take them into the birth, it would probably not work out the way that I would want it to. The last one is rose. Now rose is just, it's amazing for supporting the feminine. I think that's I guess, I was drawn to rose before I even looked up the emotional purpose for it, and so it had to go in the blend. So we'll just bring it up. Okay, it's the oil of divine love. So when I was interviewing my doulas, one of the doulas that I interviewed said to me, because I said, oh, I just, you know, I thought I was doing all the right things in the other labor. Like I stayed active and I was on the ball and I was bouncing and I was moving around and all of those sorts of things, but it still didn't end up the way that I wanted it to. And then she said to me, well, when you're in labor, all you need to do is whatever feels like love. And I was just like, mind blown, because she was talking me through this idea that love puts the baby in there. And so love releases the hormones that'll help to get the baby out in the calmest way possible. And so for me to hear that, it meant that I didn't have to do all the things that I'd read in the book. It doesn't mean that I wasn't going to do those things if I needed to. You know, for example, I had to do things physically because this baby was posterior. Morris was posterior. So, you know, I had to do things physically out of the book, but I only did it if it felt like love, not if it made me feel uncomfortable or if I felt like I was just doing it because that's what I had to do. I made sure that I moved with my body more so that it felt like it came from a place of love. And so using the oil of divine love to me was perfect. So in terms of negative emotions, it helps with those, to release those constricting feelings, a closed or broken heart, or feeling wounded. And that's how I felt. I felt a lot of fear and a lot of trauma that I was holding on to from my previous births. So this helped to release that. And then in terms of positive, it makes you feel loved, compassionate, healing, empathy, and the receiving of divine love. And for me, when we arrived at the hospital, I was okay, but then I did start to, because I was already going through transition at home. So I was starting to fret, and my doula went and grabbed this and rolled it over my heart. And immediately that smell reminded me that I had prepared for this.